Okay, the funniest thing about this movie is the last 2 minutes of the film. Not the "oh crap" aspect, it is, "That just happened. Why are you still dancing and playing the drums?" Literally, "That just happened, and you're still playing the drums and dancing, and you were maybe 15 feet away. I know you saw what happened. I know you did." Chase Lehocky here with the Blue Futon reviewing Mass Jathara. Am I saying it right? Who knows? But what's up? Pretty simple premise. You have a railroad cop, and what does he do? He goes from town to town. Well, is he really a railroad cop, or does he do more stuff? I think he is a railroad cop, but everything has to go through a train station, and this time it's a bunch of drugs, weed specifically, and he's got to figure out who the dealer is, who's doing it in this town, and just shenanigans ensues with a girl. Of course, there's always a girl in a movie like this. The girl's sister, love story, marriage, violence, silliness, goofy humor, through in and throughout. So this is what you're going to get with a movie like this, the ridiculousness of it. And this one, it was ridiculousness enough for me to enjoy what was on screen. So let's go with the positives. I think when the action sequences were on screen, they were fun. I'll say the second half was way better choreographed than the first half, which is very awkward because it did feel like it was almost two different levels of choreographies or second director unit, where I was like, okay, that fight sequence is edited kind of weird. The camera angles are interesting and it's more playful. But then the second half, it's like, yeah, you're really not playful anymore. Yeah, you might be playful with that grandpa shooting scene, but what it turns out to be, as well as like what happened on the bridge at the very end, you're like, this feels like a completely different movie. Not like story wise, but like just violent wise. And some people do get mad at some Indian films where like first half is something and the second half is completely different, like humor wise and or violence wise and or love story turns to an action set piece or through and throughout. This one, I think it's a pretty steady flow of like even after the intermission, it's still the tone kind of stays the same, the story stays the same, and they don't really try to throw stupid twists and turns in this film. And I really think that it is a fun movie when it does that way. I thought the acting was pretty good. Like I said, I already talked about the violence. There's dance sequences. I think there's about 4 of them. I've already said it before. Some of them are good. Some of them are mid. At a point, like, yes, it's choreographed fine, or great, actually. The singing is pretty good. The dancing is good. It's colorful. But sometimes I wish, like, we could go from, like, 4 to 2, maybe, like, one in the first intermission and the one in the second intermission. Because it's sometimes at the point where it decides to do the dance sequences, you're like, you just took me out of the film. Like, at a point, it's like, that really cut the movie to, like, I know what you're trying to do, but it just takes something on the air out of the room, and you're like, but I was enjoying what was happening. Why did you let me go to this, like, 3-4 minute dance sequence that literally took the air out of the room? So you have that. I think the bad guy is pretty good. You kind of feel the, angst with it. And I did like that it was a very much a more grounded-esque type of story. Because sometimes when you get to some of these stories, it's like almost you cannot kill someone. I say that, but then when I think about that train sequence and he draws the circle with the fire and there's like 100 of them and no one can touch him, and I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, fine, fine. But with the actual villain and him, it felt like no one had like true like superpowers because cuts were happening, injuries were occurring. So there was that. The grandpa had some great shirts. Grandpa had some great shirts through and throughout. So that was pretty fun. And I did like that backstory of him being old or not being married yet and why the grandpa doesn't want him to get married. Like, that is a fun story plot, right? Where you don't think about it, but you're like, yeah, being alone kind of sucks and you feel like you only have one lifeline left. So I did enjoy that part. Uh, but the violence, the bridge scene is really what I turned my eye and I said, oh, we're going there with the violence because it was like a complete 180 with what the violence is going to do. And I was like, oh, snap, we are getting pretty violent, especially there's a spike scene or like rebar scene. Sorry, a rebar scene where you're like, oh snap. Um, And also, the very beginning, there's a quote unquote suicide scene, and there's no way you could fake that suicide with how far that body dropped from the tree. There's no way. No way. And like I said, at the very end, it turns very violent and bloody, and especially at the very end, I don't know how you're dancing still. I don't know how you're playing the drums or dancing. I won't believe that whatsoever. All right, some negatives. Like I said, it is formulaic through and throughout. There's no twists and turns. You know what it's going for. I did like how the love story wasn't too sappy, so I did enjoy that when it decided to go that route. I did. I kind of like that route. Again, formulaic though. You know the beats of this one. Nothing more, nothing less. You kind of know what you're getting into this film. You know some of the actors. I've seen them before in other films, and it does feel like a beat for beat film with some of these actors that already played some of these roles before. So overall, Mass Jathara, I'm saying it wrong, I know I am, is a fun movie. Through and throughout, yes, it's silly. Yes, some of the violence is oh snap. Some of it's like, choreographed okay. Story's good. Like I said, it's surface level. It doesn't harm anyone, honestly. So Mass Jathara will receive a 3.5 out of 5 Futons, which equals that 70%. So see the critics and user scores gave this one. So there's 2 critics, both negative. Someone did agree the better second half. I agree. It does say, the tried template of action, sentiments, comedy, and song. It says it's lazy. And one gave it a 40%. When going down to the audience, there's absolutely no audience score for this one. So interesting. They're giving it a 40%, and it sounds like this one is a 50%. Sure, I understand how it kind of could feel lazy, but I guess as a Westerner, I think that is where it kind of gets different because I don't watch these movies all the time, and that can be a fault when like an Indian person watches it versus like a Western or this, kind of white guy, because I do have some Pacific Islander in me. I swear I do. But, I don't see these all the time, and to me, it doesn't get as tiring as where it is in India. Do you kind of get my drift? Anyway, 70%, and it looks like, we have the 50-ish for the critics. Chase out here, the Boo Futon, like, comment, subscribe. I'm Alex Bootontopia, you Boo Futoni, saying watching a great day. I'm about to say tomorrow, week from with a year from now. Every single freaking one of you. Peace and love, peace and love. And would you be dancing after that violence occurred? Probably not.